Yes, thank you, Tommy.
Yeah.
Hey, good morning, Facebook. It's Sarah Scott and Todd Watley.
Hi, good morning.
Welcome to the Senior Services NWA radio program. We are going to be live until 10 o'clock this morning. We have a really great show lined up for you. Stay tuned. Type in your questions and comments in the section below, right down there. And like the video, share the video. You never know who is going to come across it whenever you share it too. Stay tuned.
Double check all the connections.
No.
Yeah, it's got Alley and Shea Butter. The hell is Shea Butter?
Just a
You
touch.
guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. That's not Evans.
No, it's like for skin. It's good stuff.
Don't eat the lotion.
Yeah,
Don't eat
yeah, I won't say anymore.
That kind of lotion.
Yeah. I know Aloe. Whatever it is.
There's some lotion that's edible.
Uh-huh.
What is it?
They do make edible lotion.
Yeah.
It's a specialty item.
Once again, I won't touch that.
Let's just
Yeah, let's
moving
eat.
on.
I know what to say. Here we go.
Not afraid.
Not afraid.
Good
Hey,
enough.
Mom. Good morning. Love
Hey.
you.
I saw where
Come
Mom
see us.
mentioned me on Facebook, but I
She
was
did?
busy and I didn't go see.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I'm not sure what she's saying.
Are we in trouble?
I mean, you're the sheep to the
I'm sure it's
guys.
not. Mom's always nice.
Yes. She's a sweetheart. She's a sweetheart till she's not. It takes a lot though
Does it?
to make her a sweetheart.
Kind of like you.
Sure.
You seem to be sweet myself.
Most of the time. I try. I've just got you fooled.
Haven't seen the rapper Sarah yet.
It's bound to happen eventually, right?
I hope not.
I joke. I kid.
I guess, Sarah.
I guess, Sarah. All right, Sarah.
Seems to be the most famous line.
Yeah, I'll say. Herman, every once in a while, pick up that book you gave him. He said, Sarah Scott gave me this book, and he'll just do this, and I like it. I'll just open it.
Yep. That's what it's meant to do.
And he goes, that's cool.
Good.
All right, Todd, you ready?
I am
Both
ready.
of you, all right.
Good morning, Northwest Arkansas. This is Senior Services NWA Show. I am Todd Watley. I am here live, as always, on Wednesday with my beautiful co-host, Sarah Scott.
Good morning, Todd Watley, and thank you to everyone tuned in to the Senior Services NWA radio program.
Yep.
It's going to be a doozy today
It is.
in a really good way.
We are, just to give you quickly what we're going to talk about so you can stay tuned and not switch over to a music station or something.
Yeah.
It's something that Sarah and I have seen frequently, and it's aging parents when you're dealing with someone who is older, and when is it time to get involved? They tend to be very private. They tend to not want to share things. They don't want you up in their business, as the young folks say.
I got a joke about that.
And so, when do you forcibly get involved? And so that's going to be our topic today, is we're going to talk about when do you kind of force yourself upon your parents to say, we need to talk, we need to get involved, we need to do something. So,
Yes.
that's a teaser.
That's a little teaser for what's in store for today's show. And so it's really going to be helpful. And then we'll also touch on, once you know, okay, yeah, it's time for me to step in, how to do that. So, kind of a little twofer.
Two for there. All right.
Who doesn't love a good twofer? I love a good twofer. But as always, we love to hear from our listeners.
Good.
And the best way to hear from you is when you pick up the phone and give us a call. We love to answer questions and hear your comments, and we also like to see the difference that we're making with the show and how we've been able to help you in the past. So now would be the perfect time, since we will be live until 10, to give us a call. If you're in Rogers, Bentonville, Bella Vista, dial 636-7979. Anyone outside of that area can call 1-800-767-7979. And don't forget, we are streaming live on Facebook. Good morning, Facebook. If you have Facebook, go to the search bar and type in Senior Services NWA. Pull up a live feed of today's show. I see right now we have 5, 6 tuned in. Good morning. We got Scott, Chris, Mom, Nancy. That's all I can see right now. So, thanks so much for tuning in, and please be sure to like and share the video because you never know who is going to see it and who could benefit from the information that we bring you. So now that we got that little business out of the way, how are you, Todd?
Fantastic. It's not super cold. It is, we're now into February. Man,
Yes.
January kind of flew.
Yeah.
It seemed like, thank
Mhm.
goodness. But, so yesterday was Groundhog Day.
Mhm.
I never watched the news. I don't believe in this mess anyway, but
Yeah.
what did the groundhog say?
That it'll be 6 more weeks of winter.
All right.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
okay.
Okay. okay.
Okay.
I wonder if they, I mean, how do you define winter?
I don't know. I mean, there's a date cut off.
Well, sure, but I mean, how do you define the weather of winter? You know, some places it's really cold, and some places it's not.
Uh-huh.
I've never understood that, but it's a good movie. Have you seen the movie? Groundhog
Yeah,
Day?
with Bill Murray.
Yeah.
I've seen it a few times. It's not, I'm not crazy about it.
It's not my favorite, but
Yeah.
it's a decent movie.
You don't like the swimming pool part?
I forget.
Never mind.
Hmm.
I'll tell you later.
Okay, maybe I should go back and watch the swimming pool part.
I
Huh?
don't remember.
All right.
What's it rated? Is it R?
No.
Probably PG-13.
Yeah, PG-13.
Huh.
It had some moments.
Okay.
A little bit of language.
I'll bring it up to
A
you
little bit of
later.
adult content.
It's not appropriate.
Are you thinking
for
about Caddyshack? I know
No.
there's a pool scene there.
Well,
with the-
yeah, the Baby Ruth part?
Yeah.
No. Close. I'll just stand down.
This is a prime example of the age difference
Yeah.
and just letting everybody know
Yeah.
I'm 20 years younger than these guys.
Yeah.
So,
You're just a little girl.
yeah.
You're 30 years younger than Tommy.
Wait a minute.
You're 65?
Easy.
Are you?
Easy.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh.
Oh.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
Hey.
jump into our topic. And
Yeah.
I'm
hopefully
done.
we will get some phone calls today. But
Yes.
so the issue that we see,
Uh-huh.
okay, that I see is I get phone calls from people and they're panicked because mom and dad, you know, something has finally gone horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And they're like, Dad needs a nursing home, or
Mm-hmm.
Dad's fallen, and I didn't realize how down and out Mom is from caring for Dad, and things are bad.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it didn't just happen. It's probably been building up for years.
A lot of
And-
these things are easy to cover up, especially if you don't have regular, like,
If they want to
normal
cover it,
contact. Yeah,
Mhm,
things
they
are
can.
super easy to cover up. And I know personally, I hear a lot about these little discoveries
Mhm.
over the holidays when you spend more time together with your aging loved ones. And so there are a lot of things that if you were listening to our show around the holidays, we usually do like the hard conversations to have and things to look for. And while a lot of the signs that you need to look for and some of the red flags that you really need to pay attention to are also things that we talked about in a similar sense earlier, or actually later last year. There are some newer things that maybe we haven't covered or maybe you have missed, and so pay attention because these little telltale signs can be exactly what it is that tells you it is time to step in and to not necessarily take over your loved one's care, but do something about it. And you know, this is like, okay, this is what I know that makes my stepping in, like absolutely necessary. Like maybe before you thought, maybe. Now it's time. So the information that we are pulling, or that there's an article called Aging Parents, Signs It's Time to Step In and the Best Ways to Help. It is from the website care.com, and the article was written by a lady named Lauren Levy. It was published just at the end of this past December, so it's recent, it's relevant, and it's going to help you in a lot of ways. So listen up.
And it is already on our Facebook page.
Yes.
I was just curious how long that would take her to. Did you alert her to that?
No.
Man, I'm telling you,
She's all
Trisha
over it.
makes us look good. She makes our Facebook page look amazing. So if you want that article, you don't have to go search for it. It is on our Facebook page. Trisha has already posted it there. You just click on it and boom, it's there.
Thank you, Trisha.
She's amazing.
She is.
So I think, ideally, if you go visit your parents, it's so much easier to look around, and we're going to give you some very specific things to do if you're there. But even if you're just doing Zoom meetings or even phone calls sometimes, there are things you can do. And so I think probably one of the most prevalent things that you can see and know something is going on is when they have lost weight. Even on a Zoom call, you can see that their face is thinner, that particularly if they stand up and go get, or ask them to stand up and go get something, so that you can see them on a Zoom call and see that, man, they are losing weight. Well,
clothes are baggy.
With anything, with animals, pets, horses, and people, losing weight, unexpectedly is not a good thing.
To that, I just want to say, from the nursing home days, weight, it was required that you get regular weights on all of your residents, no matter how healthy or unhealthy they are. And one of the pieces of information that CMS uses to determine your 5-star rating score that we've talked about is if you have more than an acceptable number of residents who have lost 5% of their body weight or more within a certain time period. And if that happens, you have to take steps to either try to get the weight back on or prevent them from losing more weight, because weight is so incredibly telling about your overall health. So that's something you really do have to pay attention to.
Yeah, my wife, Patty, was director of nursing at a nursing home, and she was obsessed. She's like, we can't let these people lose weight. So yeah, weight is a key indicator, and it is something that you can see on video. You can see what's going on, and so that's important. And if you see someone losing weight, that is a sign something is going on.
Yeah.
It may not be, internal medical things. It could be dementia. They forget to eat.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, in their mind, they're like, I've already eaten.
Right.
And they haven't. And so that is a key thing, that something's going on and you need to get involved.
Yes.
Okay?
And just to add on to that, though, Todd, weight gain is also an indicator of different health issues as
Forgot
well.
that they just ate. That would be my problem.
Would it?
Because I'm always hungry.
Yeah.
But
weight loss is usually the most common change in weight that indicates something bad's happening. But if there's a weight gain that's not desired, that's something to pay attention to and dig into a little bit deeper about as well.
Yeah. And next is change in sleep patterns. And you're not going to know that so much, other than the spouse typically will complain, your dad was up all night last night. Or your dad will not let me sleep. Your dad sleeps all day and is up all night. That's a huge, that means something's wrong with that.
It does. Or changing the location of where you typically sleep.
Really?
Well, yeah, if you think about it, so if mom and dad have always slept together in their bed, and then your visit comes along and you notice that like there's a pretty defined shape of your dad in the recliner, and he's got pillows and he's just constantly sleeping in the recliner. Well, what's that all about? Is that having to do with some breathing issues? Is it because mom's starting to snore a lot? I mean, so not just the frequency, but also the location and those types of sleep patterns.
I will say from my physical therapy days, shoulder pain
Uh-huh.
is worse when you lay down flat. And about the only way you can get comfortable if you're having severe shoulder problems is to sleep semi-reclined in a recliner. So, yeah, sleeping somewhere different. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, if you are sleeping somewhere differently, that's a problem. But what I hear mostly is the spouse complaining that they're up all night.
Yeah.
They're just wandering the house. They gotta go to the bathroom. They're in the fridge. They're just up all night, and it kills them because the spouse is always the caregiver, and they're not sleeping, and the other person isn't sleeping, and it just escalates into chaos.
Right. Okay. So the next red flag to be looking for are emotional changes. So these could be prime example right here. I had a participant who was diagnosed with dementia, and upon the initial interview with her caregiver to get more information about what's going on with mom, she says before mom was diagnosed with dementia, she was the biggest witch you could imagine, and in this disease process has become my shadow, my biggest fan, and this lady would go out of her way prior to the diagnosis to make life really difficult for her daughter-in-law. And now she's had this mood change, which was a good
It's
thing,
good,
but oftentimes it's not.
It's an indicator that something's wrong.
Yeah, and something was wrong.
Mom's suddenly nice, so let's
Who
take her to
knew?
the doctor.
Who knew? I have to tell you, the first day that I worked at a nursing home, my administrator, I was brand new, very first day.
How old?
It was in 08. So, yeah. So, my administrator said, I want you to start getting to know the residents. So I want you to spend today with the activities director and help her with carrying out the activities. So, go down to the dining room, we're playing bingo. And I sit beside this lady. Nobody tells me anything about her.
Don't sit by her.
She just looks over at me. The colonel would get really upset with me if I repeated what she said to me, but she had very foul language and called me several explicit names, and everybody started laughing. They thought they were like, she's getting initiated, she's learning the hard way. And poor Miss Elsie, she would just cuss and yell at everybody in sight, and she would make fun of my voice, and she would say, oh, well, you just talk like a little baby girl, and just throw in cuss words, and was the meanest but cutest little lady. But apparently before she got dementia, her family had never even heard her say a cuss word. And she was one of those like Sunday school teachers, super meek, gentle, kind, loving, and she flipped like a switch too. So, so we're calling bingo, and she gets bingo. So I went over to check her card, and she hit me. She literally hit me when I started to reach down and move her chips off of the card, because you don't check. I wouldn't lie.
To verify. Right. Oh,
Yeah.
She was saying,
Yeah,
okay.
but she got so mad at me because I was basically calling her a liar by checking her bingo card. I learned a lot that day.
Sure.
I learned
First
a
day on
lot
the
that
job.
day.
Yeah.
So anyway, just some prime examples of some of the types of mood or emotional changes that can indicate that something bigger is going on besides just having a grumpy day.
I would assume the nursing home bug did not bite you that day.
It was still fun. It was. it was still fun. I mean, and I just knew from then on that if I happened to slip a cuss word in Miss Elsie's room, she wasn't going to tell on me.
Right. It's funny because Patty's grandmother went to a nursing home, and she was a pretty meek and mild lady. And they get a phone call saying that she's kicking other residents' wheelchairs because they wouldn't get out of her way.
Yeah.
Kicking them.
Yeah.
Like, pushing
Get
them
out of the way. Yep.
Mom, you can't do that.
So you lose your inhibition
Yeah.
and your personality. And it could mean that a whole lot more than just a bad day is happening.
So all those things
listen to
that go through my head that I currently suppress might actually come out.
They could. We're in trouble.
Lock me up.
Okay, new bruises is the next thing to look for. So you hear sometimes people say I bruise like a peach. I do bruise like a peach, by the way.
Really?
Anytime I bump into something, it seems like I've got bruises all over my legs or bruises I can't recall what happened. But that's nothing new for me. But if you start noticing frequent bruising, that could indicate anything from a side effect with a medication that they're taking to the fact that they're falling more and that they have depth perception problems and then they can't keep from running into different objects. So there's a lot of different things that new bruises could mean.
And that's hard to see.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'll admit, this is one of those things that you are not going to notice until you really spend some time with them, possibly giving them a bath or something like that. You won't get that from a phone call, and you won't get that in many ways. But if you see it, it's crucially important.
Oh, we got all tangled up. Sorry.
Over there.
Okay.
Sorry, trying to get our.
We have a call.
We have a caller. Hey, caller, thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Okay. I listen to you all quite frequently.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
But I don't hear it every day. So you have already done this. I don't know.
Okay.
But I feel like people my age need to on the lookout. I get these phone calls.
Yep.
And I have no idea who they are or anything. And my son, when I live by myself, I used to ask for the little bag. But my son has told me, he said, Mom, if you get something, if you don't understand who they are or don't recognize it, because I have to call and I'll show who the number is on my phone. He said, you hang up. You say nothing. You just hang up. And he said, because there's just too many scams out there. And he said, if they want to give your identity, he said, you don't need to be talking to them.
Yeah.
And so I followed that. But that hasn't stopped completely.
No.
I just got one this morning, and I just hung up because my phone, it always gives who it is and so forth. But I thought about how many elderly people haven't been told this. And the one time, they're either trying to sell you something usually, or they're talking nasty.
Talking nasty.
Well, goodness.
Well-
You are not alone.
Your son has given you really good advice, and I know it's hard for your age group. You grew up when the phone was just between friends, and
Yeah.
you always picked it up. You always talked to people because only people who knew you would call you. That is not the case anymore, and I tell people, if you don't recognize the number, don't answer it. Just
That's what he told me.
just don't even answer it. If it is someone important, they will leave a message, and you can check the message and you can call them back. And I do that. If I don't recognize the number, I just don't answer it, and people understand that. And a good friend of mine sells Medicare insurance, during open enrollment, and he said, Todd, no one picks up the phone for me anymore. And I was like, well, I'm sorry, but they don't recognize your number, and I am telling people don't answer the phone. And so he has given you good advice, because I can tell you, as an attorney, families call me all the time saying, Mom is sucked into this scam. She thinks she's going to win $20 million. She's almost there, but she's got to pay $1,000 for this and $500 for that. It's just ongoing. So don't answer the phone, okay?
Well, it's automatic. I have a cell phone, but this
Yeah.
is my home phone. That's
Sure,
all.
sure.
And, I use just automatic right and recliner, and my phone was back in the order thing, and when that phone rang,
You just pick it up. I know. You're gonna have to make yourself not pick that phone up unless you absolutely know who is calling, and just believe that if it's important and you need to call them back, leave a message and you can call them back.
well, I was listening to your program, and I thought, I wonder how many other seniors my age, are going to.
So many.
It's pitiful.
I know.
I'm not to tell them not to come talk.
Well,
Yeah.
But anyhow,
thank you.
Thank you.
I just thought I would ask this first time in my life ever called in.
Well, thank
Oh,
you.
good.
Hey, well,
Good.
thank you for calling us so much. All right, have a good day.
I thank you a lot.
Thank you. Okay,
Bye.
bye. How sweet was that?
That
Her
was
first
so
radio
sweet.
call in.
I know. We do see, Tricia said that they still can't hear the callers very well on Facebook. So just for the Facebook listeners, the lady that called, it was her first time to ever call into a radio show. And she was just saying that she gets so many phone calls, like scam calls, that are from an unknown number, and her son told her, unless you know the number, don't answer. But it's just really hard for her not to answer.
Yep.
So we're just going to encourage everybody to not answer if you don't know who's calling, and if it's that important, they will leave you a message and you can return that call.
And for our listeners, after $800 probably, hopefully next week we can hear telephone calls. Okay. I have spent some substantial amount of funds to hopefully fix that problem, and so
Yes.
hopefully I'm waiting on a few more adapters, but
Uh-huh.
hopefully next week we will have that fixed. So.
Yeah.
And yes, for all of you out there, don't answer the phone.
Mm-mm.
Just don't, because there are scams out there, and it is frustrating. It's exhausting, and people will leave a mess. And the other thing I want to say, the U.S. government first contact with you, if there really is a problem, is not with a phone call.
No.
They will send you something in the mail that looks official, that has a claim number or some kind of code, and the first contact from the U.S. government will not be a phone call.
Period.
If someone calls you and says they are from the IRS, they are lying.
Yes.
I will just flat out say it.
Yes. If you are just now tuned in, thank you so much. This is the Senior Services NWA radio program. Todd and I are here live until 10 today. We are talking about aging parents and what signs to look for that indicate it is time to step in and start helping, and what the best ways to do that are. So we will take calls and questions all throughout the show up until the very end. And you can give us a call at 636-7979 or 1-800-767-7979. And we are also streaming live on Facebook. Good morning. We've had a few more tune in. Thank you so much for checking us out on Facebook. And you can also enter in questions and comments in the section right below the video, and also pull up all of the resources that pertain to the topics that we cover for every show. So, back to the aging parent signs that it's time to step in.
So the next few I'm going to combine into
Yeah.
just one. Is basically, if you are seeing through phone calls, through Facebook, or not Facebook, through Zoom, video conferencing, or in person, confusion, not handling things well, so not taking medications as they should, not following medical directions, that's a problem. And then just general confusion. They ask the same question during the same phone call. You just notice something is not happening. That is obviously a sign of a problem. And I love this one. And I'm going to suggest one of the care.com suggestions is, if they are missing doctor's appointments, I would encourage you that, man, something is loud and feeding back I would encourage you to have your parents, when they go to their doctor, list you as a HIPAA recipient.
Yes.
Meaning that you can call the doctor and get healthcare information.
Uh-huh.
And so your parents have to sign something at the doctor's office to say, you can talk to my son, my daughter, whoever. Then, once they have done that, I would call that doctor's office and say, look, if my parent misses an appointment, call me.
Yes.
I want you to call me because they need to, when they start missing doctor's appointments, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's frustrating for the doctor because it's hard to provide care when you don't show up for your appointment, and it's a sign something is wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And let's be honest, most, especially our seniors, kind of thrive on appointments and seeing their doctors and getting all the help and information and that physical, interaction, that contact, and just somebody there to help take care of them, and they can't wait to get to go see their doctor. And so when that doesn't happen, it's a great idea to have the doctors notified, or have the doctor's office notify you so that you can follow up and figure out exactly why. And this is also something that will be easy to kind of mask over if you're just on the phone and they said, I got the days mixed up on the calendar, or I wrote it down wrong. You need to listen to what they say, but also do the due diligence in following through and trying to figure out, okay, is this becoming a pattern? What else are we forgetting? Really pay attention to that.
Pay attention to the small things
Yeah.
because, like I said at the very beginning, it can be, not literally, but it seems like the straw that breaks the camel's back. Something major happens, and it's like, man, this is major. Well,
Yeah.
it probably just didn't just happen.
Right.
Okay, there were signs other than like a stroke or a massive heart attack.
Mhm.
Those are two things that can take you from absolute health to devastation, but typically it is a very slow process, ongoing, and it's getting progressively worse. And just like when your kids grow, it's like you don't see them grow, you don't see how much taller they are today than they were yesterday, but if you see them over 3 months, you're like, wow, something's different.
Yeah.
And so, the grandparents come in, it's like, man, they have grown. It's, and that's because they haven't seen them in a while. So pay attention to the small changes that you see your loved ones start to revert and have problems.
Yes. Okay. So the next telltale sign that it is time to step in to help your aging loved one is the lack of grooming. That's a big one.
I'm letting you cover this because I suffer from a lack of grooming most days.
Okay. So one of the so for men, I think that especially if someone has always been very clean shaven, when you start to notice that they've got this scraggly, 2 weeks going on Tommy look without shaving, and that's totally out of character for them. It could simply mean that their razor has broken and you need to get them a new one, but it could also mean that their brain doesn't process to tell them, I care enough about my appearance, I want to look clean and well kept. It could also mean that their brains can't process how to go get the razor and how to shave and actually like carrying out those tasks. And so for women, that could mean that they, are starting to smell really bad. Or that you've noticed, especially on a Zoom or FaceTime call, if you're talking to them several times a week, are they wearing the same clothes? Because those things don't get changed typically if they're not taking a shower or a bath. Other things to look for would be like facial hair, even on women. I know most women don't necessarily care to have a mustache or hairs growing out of their chins, and that's kind of one of the normal parts of getting old, is hair starts coming out of different hair follicles you didn't know you had. Okay, so paying attention to those things and just really not just taking them for surface value, but looking into it a little bit deeper could give you a lot of insight to what life is really like when you're not around.
And certain undergarments may be difficult for a female to put on,
Mhm.
and if they don't put it on, and they always have,
Yeah.
something's going on. It
Yeah.
could be mental, could be physical. Their shoulders could be sore, and it could be a problem. And,
Yeah.
and that's one of those signs that, hey, something's going on.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Next thing is noticeable difference in dexterity. PT.
Yeah. When you can't dial the phone, when you can't, handle a fork or a spoon or something, that's a problem.
Mhm.
When they switch from a fork to a spoon, that's a sign that they're not able to do the fine motor of poking the meat with the fork, whereas with the spoon, it's easier to scoop it up and do that. You're like, Mom, why are you using a spoon rather than a fork? Unless you know this is a sign of something, you're just like, well, that's weird.
Yeah. And handwriting is
And-
also very telling. Changes in handwriting. I have to say, when my dad was going through chemo, prior to chemo, he's had the most beautiful handwriting.
Really?
He did the calligraphy for our wedding invitations. Like, he's really
Interesting.
very artsy and has very fancy handwriting. During his chemotherapy a couple years ago, when he would send me or the boys cards, it was not. It looked good, but I could just tell, and it broke my heart the first time I saw the card from him. I don't remember whose birthday it was for, but he took so much pride in making those envelopes look like, it's a special thing. And you could tell he still made that effort, but it just wasn't quite the same. It has gotten better now, but during that difficult time, and while he had a lot of health stuff going on, that was one of the biggest changes. So
that was an
pay attention.
indicator that something was
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
Goodness.
So,
I meant to go back real quick. I've told this story a few times. This was years ago. And this lady, this couple came in. He had dementia, and she came in for documents and things. And he came in. They came in for some reason numerous times. And we were doing Medicaid for them, and so they had to bring in documents repeatedly. Every time they came in, he was wearing a suit and tie. I mean, was made up to the nines. And so the first few times, I'm like, I always noticed, do y'all like schedule special appointments or something? Why is he always dressed up? And she said, he's a retired attorney, and that's what he wore every day of his life. But, well, definitely Monday through Friday. And she said even on Saturdays and Sundays, he would dress up. Maybe not a suit and tie,
yeah.
but he would always get up and shave. And even with dementia, she would get him up and put him in a suit every single day. And he would come into the office wearing a suit. I just thought that's very interesting. Number one, most attorneys, me primarily, don't wear suits anymore.
Yeah.
But
That's
so anyway,
sweet.
yeah. You were going to say something.
Oh, do you remember a couple weeks ago we were talking about the resident who would always spit on the floor that ended up getting a pacifier? He was, I can't remember what his profession was, but he was always well kept and nicely dressed and everything. And so his daughters demanded that he continue to look like they thought he should look.
Wow. Yep.
And no matter how difficult it was to get those pants on and that belt, and I mean that was important to him at one point, and they felt like it made him still have dignity, and it definitely helped comfort the family, and so that they could at least see who they would want to see on the outside. So yeah, any kind of change in physical appearance, grooming, really important to pay attention to that.
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to say real quick, my good friend Reba
Rita!
from Fort Smith said that she was a victim of a scam, and they called as the American Heart Association.
Oh, okay.
And so in that situation, I would never, ever make a donation based on someone calling you. I would, if they call, and if it is something that you're interested in, just say thank you, but I will call the number. I will go online to the American Red Cross or March of Dimes or whatever, go to their website and find their phone number and call and say, I would like to make a donation.
That's right.
And not do it through, I used to get state police all the time would
Yes.
call me for
Yes.
buying little stuffed animals for the
Toys for
corporate.
Tots and stuff.
Well, Toys for Tots, but this one was like, and I was like, you know, they sounded legitimate, and
Stand by.
but the thing is, even if they are legitimate, typically if it's a agency doing it for state police, they take probably half the money. Only half of your donation actually goes to the real charity. These people, whereas if you call them directly and say, hey, I want to buy some stuffed animals for, they're like, okay, 100% goes there. And so I know people have to make a living, but it's just kind of, there's better ways to make a living than thinking that you're donating full money to a. Okay.
Tommy, do we have a call?
All right, let's try this again. I'm going to jack that all the way up. You're going to put that in there, and I'm going to put these on my head. Okay, caller. Oh. Hey, caller, thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Yeah, thank you for your show.
You're welcome.
My brother and father-in-law used to come to the house and they'd do little projects for their channel, and they lived 4 hours away.
Yeah.
But I got to notice them maybe 10 or 12 years before he passed. His breath was always bad. My wife didn't notice it and didn't think anything about it. We found out before he passed that he'd been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and my mother-in-law never let any of us know.
Right.
Wow.
They're very protective. Yeah.
You got to be quiet in the ordeal, but bad breath was the thing I noticed.
Yes.
And it became a little more obvious to us. But anyway, I've got a question for Todd that's sort of off subject.
Okay.
My sister and I had a discussion last week. Her mom and dad deeded the home to us and our siblings. And her question was, what if one of ours, the siblings who are in the nursing home, are at this estate, can they take all of the property or
Sure.
portion or
Okay. Sure. And there's two ways that non-married people can receive property. Okay. One is joint owners with rights of survivorship, and one is tenants in common. If the deed, if it says mom and dad are deeding this to children A, B, C, and D, if there is nothing right after that to say how they are getting it, it is deemed to be tenants in common. It has to say joint owners with rights of survivorship. For some strange reason, Arkansas Medicaid looks at those very differently. If you are a co-owner with your siblings, joint owners with rights of survivorship, Arkansas Medicaid has said that property cannot be sold by you alone, and therefore cannot be converted into cash, and therefore is a non-countable asset. If it does not have that language in it, then it is deemed to be tenants in common, and a co-owner owning the property as a tenant in common can sell their portion of the property, and therefore that is a countable asset. So if there are 4 people that are owners, if one of them needs to apply for Medicaid, still owning this property, Medicaid will say 25% of that assessed value will be an asset that will count against you. Now, a common tool that I use, and this is just following their rules and doing what they say, is we get all 4 of those siblings together and say, look, let's deed this to ourselves as joint owners with rights of survivorship. And so we have converted it from a countable asset to a non-countable asset. Now, with that wording, if one of those children died, they get nothing. Okay? If you die as a tenant in common, that portion of your estate will go through your estate, and something will have to be done with it. And if you don't deal with it any other way, that means it's going through probate. So there are 2 reasons that I highly recommend that we deed the property to the kids, joint owners with rights of survivorship. One is to avoid probate, and the other is to avoid the Medicaid counting it as an asset.
Okay. Okay, I think I understand.
If you want me to look at that, I would be glad to, just in a phone call in 3 seconds, I can say, here's how this is and here's the implications of it. Okay? So you can call the office at 479-601-4119 and they will get you the information to just email that over to me. I'll look at it and give you some guidance on that for free. Okay?
Okay.
Sure. Thank you for the question. You're welcome.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Good question.
Yeah. So if you did not understand, his question was his parents deeded someone, which is very common, deeded property to the siblings, and he did not tell me how it was deeded, but it is different. That you heard that explanation that Medicaid looks at jointly owned property very different between non-married people to say, is it joint owners with rights of survivorship, and it has to say that for it to be that. If it doesn't say that, then it is deemed to be tenants in common, and that is a countable asset with Medicaid.
There you go. You heard it here first. Oh, Aunt Diane just tuned in. Hello. And Abby's there.
I know, my daughter's listening.
Listen, we got some
Yeah.
family, and my mother-in-law. Okay, so there's quite a bit of information left to cover this topic about what to look for to know that it's time to step in and help your aging loved ones. If we happen to not be able to get to all the handy ways that you actually do step in, we'll continue that next week.
Yeah. Talk about the refrigerator. That's always
yes.
the most.
Check out the refrigerator. Don't just look in there to see what you can grab to eat. Look at the expiration dates. Look at, are the foods that are in there things that you brought over thinking that they were going to eat, 2 weeks ago, and it's still in the Wendy's bag? Look at, especially if you take them groceries, when they got there, and is it gone? Have they even touched it? And then you also want to look at, okay, are the seals, are the seals pulled all the way closed, like on a bag of cheese, like the Ziplocs and stuff, or is the lid all the way on the juice or on the milk and things like that? Because that can kind of indicate some dexterity issues. It can also indicate that processing issue. So checking out the fridge is going to be really crucial to letting you know, one, if they're getting the nutrition, and two, if their mental capacity is even telling them or allowing them to no, okay, this milk has curdles in it and it's 3 weeks old, it's time to
This
throw it
meatloaf
away.
has green stuff growing on
Yeah.
it. It's yeah.
If you find anything that's been expired, please just throw it away. Please just throw it away. Don't leave it in there to see if they're going to try to eat it. That is not a good test to take. Just throw it away.
There's, I'm laughing because in our family there is a whole, there's two sides of this issue.
Oh, I bet I know about it.
About
I've got it too.
expired expiration dates on things. There's some of us who think, by George, if you hit that day, it goes in the trash.
Yep.
And then there's the other camp that says it's a scam. They're just trying to get you to buy more food. It's which side of that are you on?
I'm an extremist when it comes to expiration date.
Really?
Think about my background. I've gotten deficiencies in surveys before because there was a bag of cheese that was a day old. Older than it should be.
Okay.
I mean, I write
And you just carried that home. What?
I write dates opened on my food in my refrigerator at home. I also write dates of if it's leftovers, what date I cooked it. If I freeze meat, I write the date that I froze it on.
Do that.
Yeah, I'm a strong believer in expiration dates and following those. Now, a best buy date has a little bit of wiggle room. That's not the same as an expiration
So,
date. That's a suggested
I've drank
date.
buttermilk that's probably 2 months past the date.
But that's buttermilk.
Okay.
I mean, it's-
you said you were very adamant about the dates, but yes.
It's
I
sour
test
anyway.
it. I know.
That's gross, though. Ugh.
Love buttermilk. Love buttermilk.
Oh, that's what
So
drives me.
I'm
Yeah.
in the camp that it's kind of a scam.
Okay, well,
And I'm sure it's like super safe, but Patty's mom, just like you, the day of, it's gone.
Yep. I used to get really frustrated when my husband and I were dating, and I would come to his apartment on the weekends, and he would be like, "Where'd all my food go?" I'm like, "You had pickles in there that were 6 years old." Spices are the worst. Spices, I think, that's really hard, but
It's not dangerous, but yeah, they probably are better fresh. I mean, they are definitely better fresh. So anyway, that's
all
just
right,
funny.
check
Okay,
out the fridge.
check
okay.
out the fridge.
And then this one kind of falls in line with, are they missing their doctor's appointments? Check to see if they're consistent with their doctors. So basically when parents are staying on top of picking up their prescriptions and engaging with their doctors, this is a positive sign that they are on top of their health care. And so if they're not picking up their prescriptions and they're not engaged with their doctor, that's a sign something bigger may be going on. You also want to check out how well someone is able to navigate in their homes. So if even if they have mobility challenges, when your parents are using their walkers regularly, they can maintain their independence. So if they require those assistive devices from walkers to wheelchairs or canes, and they're consistently using those to get through the house, that's good. But if you notice that we're always leaving our walker beside the table or in the hall, that's not a good thing, and it could lead to falls and further complications. All right, check
Sure.
it. What?
Trisha's on it today. I see a link. I don't know what it says, but it says stopfoodwaste.org tip/eat/expiration date. So I don't know
There you
if
go.
it's pro expiration dates, or I would think since it's stop food waste, it would say probably on some of these things you can let them go. So,
Yeah, okay. All right, check out the transportation. Now, this is a biggie because I know somebody who's listening right now.
mhm.
I'm not going to name any names, but sometimes you nick somebody else's vehicle or you back into something.
Yep.
And if it becomes a pattern, you either need to pay more attention.
We'll
'Cause
let
you're going
once
to-
go by, okay? Once can go by.
But you might have something going on, so you gotta get better at driving, or quit telling me about it when it happens.
Exactly. Look at your parents' car.
Look at the car.
Look at the bumpers.
Look at the bumpers. Please don't look at mine.
She's got
I got
boys
nicks
that-
and oh my
yeah.
gosh. There could be valid reasons, you know. I mean, people actually do have valid reasons to have new scratches and dents on their cars that don't indicate that it's time to quit driving. So don't freak out. Just saying. You need to either get better at driving or quit telling me.
And hit and run is a crime.
Okay. The next thing is to see how they respond to your concerns. So you've looked at all these things, you've noted, you've thought, oh my gosh, I'm really concerned about this. How are they responding to your concerns? So if your parent has a valid plan to address your concerns, then you want to step back and let them try to fix it. Just push pause and allow them to improve the situation, and then allow them to consider what is needed to initiate that plan. I'm telling you, if you notice all these things and they are like, you know what, you're right, I'm going to slow down when I drive, I'm going to pay more attention, and I'm going to start that today. And then that's a good sign, but also kind of keep looking around the car. If they say, I'm going to check my refrigerator every week for expired foods and throw them away, let a month go, check the fridge again, and let that be your answer. If they can process what to do to fix it and implement that plan to fix it and keep it going, I think you're good for a little bit, okay? But if they don't, then you know how they're responding to your concerns and that it's time to step in. And then you also want to consider their confidence and self-esteem. So I realize that a lot of times when you're bringing up these shortfalls, basically,
It's hard.
and it's so easy to just stick your porcupine needles out and get defensive and, you know, I've got this going on and I'm stressed out about this and I'm older and, you know, well, what do you expect? Well, we're having this conversation because, you know, you took care of me for 20 years and I want to help make sure that you're looked after and these things concern me. And if you saw me doing these things, would you not step in and try to help fix it? So there are really delicate conversations to have, but there are tactful ways to go about it without getting those porcupine needles stuck in your hands.
Yeah, and if your parents have lived, I mean, even if they've not lived there very long, I would, if you're not there locally, I would, and Bella Vista has a great program where they call every single day, right?
Operation Good Morning.
Talk about that for just a second.
Operation Good Morning is a program through the Bella Vista Police Department that basically you notify them that you have a loved one that you want to be a recipient of this, just a phone call check in the mornings. And it's just a courtesy call. They call your dad and say, hey, Mr. Johnson, just checking to see how you're doing. But if they don't answer, or if they notice that they don't sound right, or if there's an expressed concern during that phone call, they're going to give you a phone call and let you know, and they'll usually go out there and lay eyes on them just to make sure everything's okay.
That's how they found out that my father had passed away.
Really?
His nephew called him every morning, and he had called twice, and he didn't answer. And he's like, "That is very, you know, it's not unusual for him to not answer once. You know, he was out doing something, but the third time he didn't answer, he's like, I'm going over there." Sure enough, found him dead.
Wow.
So, yes. So even if there is not that program, people are still fairly nice nowadays, and I would talk to the neighbors. If you don't live there, have a neighbor say, hey, would you just call them every morning or, you know, swing by and knock on the door, make sure, and just, you know, someone to lay eyes on them and just make sure that they're okay.
Right. So what you're going to need to do is step out of your usual child role, and that's definitely a mind shift for a lot of people when you transition from being the listener and protector and then the one giving advice. So as you get into that headspace of being your parent's caregiver versus their child, consider whether they need to see a doctor. They may not go on their own, so be kind of insistent that you at least provide a ride, or like Todd said earlier in the show, get on that HIPAA release so that you can get the progress notes and the physician's orders, you know, the med list and things like that, so that you are in the know, and that will also tell you if they come to the appointment or not.
I call it parenting the parent, which is hard because you do have to switch roles, and just like your parent grabbed you by the arm and said, do not run out into the street, they weren't being mean, they weren't being overly intrusive, they were saving your life, okay?
Yeah.
You can't swallow that poison, you can't, you know, overeat, you can't do, you know, so, you know, it's important that, you know, think about how your parents treated you growing up for good reason. It's now your turn to step in and help parent the parent.
That's a good little
man.
phrase.
Fastest hour of my life,
It
I
is.
swear. So thank you so much. You did a fantastic job today. You always do a good job. I mean,
well, thanks. I did put a little teaser out there last night on Facebook. There was a picture of me and Todd. We've got something exciting going on that we're not quite ready to announce, but it is very exciting for us, and we're gonna be sharing that with the radio program. So
When?
Stay tuned.
over the next few weeks.
Over the
All
next
right.
few weeks, you will find out some exciting news.
Okay.
And Yeah, so stay tuned for that. Next week, we're going to have a great show. We'll continue the rest of the context that we weren't able to get to today on how to step in. Now we know when to step in. Next week, we'll tell you how to step in, and we are working on a guest from a new local home care agency. So hopefully, we'll have her in the studio as well.
Cool.
You see
All right.
clients?
Yes. If you need me, if you have questions or concerns, or just want me to look over something, please let me know. 479-601-4119, and we will see you next week.
Thank
All righty,
you.
Todd and Sarah, be good.
Bye.
You're listening to KURN Rogers, Springdale.